Yeah, I'm really excited to be here presenting. I cannot imagine a better place to present my book. Yeah, Matteo said a lot of things. I would like to speak about all of them. I don't know, I was wondering if any of you know this lettering versus calligraphy project. Have you ever been on the website or anything? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, well, you should check it out, yeah. It was a project a long time ago. Yeah, but that was one of the projects where I thought, you know, it was like a side project that I started with a calligrapher, a friend of mine, and was one of the projects that really encouraged me to, you know, continue this path, and I'm really thankful to that project. So you should go check it out. So I'm gonna present my new book, and I'm just gonna flip through the book and tell you, you know, stories about it, like anecdotes and stuff. So it's a book about letter design, and I've been working on it all in all, like 2 years. So yeah, I've been teaching lettering for a while, and I've been doing lettering for a while. And the book is made under, you know, my personal belief that everyone can actually learn to draw letters. And Matteo, he wrote the foreword for the book, which brings me directly to why I'm here. So I met Matteo in Germany. So I met Matteo in Germany at, you know, the original edition of this book is German. So my editor is a German publishing house, it's Verlag Hammerschmidt. So they did a you know, like a dinner. They invited a few creatives, and we were there. So there was fancy food. We had a nice talk. I think we connected pretty well. No, I think the amount of white wine served that night also helped to connect. Yeah. So you know, Matteo told me at the time we were speaking about the book, and he told me, "Hey, you should come to New York to present your book at CDC." And I said, "Well, yeah, fine." Trying to hide that I was extra excited about this opportunity. So when the book was going to print, when the English edition of the book was going to print, I thought, hey, I think Matteo should write the foreword for the book. So I asked him, he accepted, and a few weeks later, the publishing house sent me an email saying, hey, this is the foreword he wrote for you. So the foreword started like this: dear reader, you have been tricked. So I thought, well, nothing good can come after this. And it didn't. You thought you bought a book. Yeah, you thought you bought a book that would teach you how to create lettering like a typographic artist. But what? Like, I actually created a book with this purpose. Yeah, but it then got better, really. He said, like, but Martina is more than just a letter, and this is more than a book about lettering. So, modesty aside, I think he really got the idea of the book. I think this is a book that speaks about the creation of lettering and gives you tools to actually start with your practice. But I think it's also a book that, you know, reflects about our role as designers and how to get the best out of your design process, which can be actually extrapolated to many other disciplines, not only to those who do lettering. So how many of you do lettering here in the room? It doesn't matter how professional you are, if you practice or you do it as a hobby. Okay, a lot of you. So I have to remember to follow you all on Instagram before the, yeah. So, oh, let me go back to that. So this is where it all started. That's a notebook that I used during my studies in type design in the Netherlands. This book, or this notebook, is what I showed to my publisher when we had this first meeting about this book. And I told him, like, I want this book to feel like this. The other thing I took with me was sort of dummy of the book. So it was not the whole thing, it was just, okay. So it was just a few chapters to picture a little bit of the concept. So how the illustrations would be, how the tone of the text would be, the layout. A lot of things changed since then, but I wanted to make a book that looked like a work in process, you know, like a work in progress, so that the reader would feel that he or she could also do that, which is totally true. So in that first meeting, the editor and I decided to do this book together. Like, we were on the same page, literally, with the project. And we set a deadline, we put a contract together. And the funny thing is that when I was at this meeting, I was pregnant. I was really pregnant. So this is when I made the big promise, which is like, okay, I promise I will finish this book in 9 months. So normal people would have said like, hey, hold it, I'm not sure you're gonna be able to handle all this. But the editor is a very optimistic person, and he trusted everywhere. So he said, well, fine. And I know it looks unlikely, but it actually happened. After 9 months, the book was going to print. So since then I say, like, never underestimate the power of female hormones, because they can get you through anything. So back to the book, I start by, defining what lettering is, and which is often mixed with type design and calligraphy. So lettering is all about storytelling. Is telling stories with letters. With my work, I'm looking to communicate something, to pass through a story, to communicate an idea. So the form of a letter tells us things. So there's letter shapes that tell you how modern and cool that car is, at least back in the 50s. Some letter shapes confirm the magnitude of a place, and they fit, the application. Some letters tell us, about tradition. But for a long time, lettering has been out there to tell us stories. This is a bakery in Paris, and by looking at this sign, I can almost picture how tasty the bread they do is, right? I can see, the dough, and I can imagine that they use the perfect ingredients, that the baker is like working on the dough really carefully. The same way that the guy who did this sign actually drew every detail of those letter shapes. So by looking at this sign, you can imagine that this bread tastes really good. And I can say it did taste good. I actually tried that one. So perhaps something particular about my own story with lettering and letter design is that, I wasn't really aware of lettering as a profession when I started with it. So I sort of approach letter design by the harder side, which is type design. This is a picture of me during my studies in type design in the Netherlands. So I was interested in typography, I remember, before going to study. And I thought that was, lettering was not so popular at the moment. And and I thought this was the opportunity to actually develop that interest that I had. And type design was actually a very rough way of approaching this whole thing. Type design is really technical, it's black and white, you have to make a lot of things work, So those were great times. I actually tried a lot of different techniques and tools to create letter shapes. I wouldn't have pictured this present without studying type design, without getting all that inspiration. This is my Ken Barber moment. So I don't know if you know him, but he's a lettering artist. He works, he does a lot of things for house industries. He's one of my design heroes. And during the studies, we had a workshop with him. And besides working a lot, learning a lot from him, I consider this workshop like a milestone in my career, because that was the moment where I thought, like, I want to be like him, and since that moment I actually pursued that. So after my type design studies, I felt I could draw extroverted letter shapes, but then when I had them done, I couldn't go as far as adding color to it. So it really took a lot of learning through making to create atmospheres, to achieve certain depth with my designs. And most of all, like, to tell this story that has to do with lettering. So I learned type design, and as I said before, type design is concept-free. So you cannot create a font that feels or reminds you of a springtime day, or that feels dark. So the fonts acquire significance, or they tell stories through their use, right? When they're used in a layout or in a logotype. So I had to go from this concept-free, very systematic black and white approach to letter design to a conceptual, colorful, expressive design process, which has to do with lettering, right? So having, as a letterer, having this letter design background is it's a big card in your pocket, but there's a lot of things that come after that. It's not only about drawing letters, but it's about telling stories as well. So back to the book. I speak about the applications of lettering. What can you use it for? And I speak about what I consider a very important part of designing, which is what I call the typographic eye, which is basically the capacity of observing and criticizing. And I think for that it's just great to use what we have in hand. Typography is around us all the time. So what I do is to show pictures of vernacular lettering that you find in the streets. And I very intuitively analyze its parts, right? So I find relationships between letters, and I introduce notions of spacing and contrast. So basically this is what I do. This is a sign in Berlin. This is what I call sausage lettering, Wurst lettering, because it has this sort of consistent stroke, which is like a sausage, which very much fits with this application, which is a butcher's shop. So then I find relationship between three letter shapes, right? The C, the A, the E, they sort of, share the same rounded shapes. So that you can group them together, and therefore you can probably design them together. Then I find other related shapes, for instance, the W and the M, right? They are more or less like mirrored shapes, right? And I highlight the R because it's a very weird R. I don't think everyone can really read that as an R, but then how many ways do you have to draw an R, right? Well, the letters are joined, so you can relate that to our handwriting, which is connected, right? And there's certain features that are shared between letters. So that brings me right to why I'm in Berlin and how did I get there. So I moved to Berlin directly after my type design studies. And when I arrived there, no one knew me. I didn't know anyone. So I had all this knowledge that I wanted to pass over. So I wanted to teach lettering. But yeah, I hadn't done it before, and I didn't know if I was any good at it, which is a common feeling in a lot of things I do. And so I thought, hey, I will offer a workshop, and the first workshop I offered was for free. My thought was really basic. I thought, okay, if I don't charge for it, or people don't have to pay for it, they will also not complain if it's too bad, right? And also I will have the opportunity of having the room full and trying myself at this teaching. So yeah, I organized this workshop with so much work on it. I did a logotype especially for that, which will change in every edition. I did goodie bags, certificates, a prize. Yeah, I thought where the people will see it, yeah, I thought of every detail. And the workshop was successful, and I felt that people was happy, And also I felt for the first time something that I think is what keeps me teaching nowadays, which is like, I felt that the people was leaving that workshop with a certain level of illumination, right? Like they could see things that they couldn't see before. And those things they could use for their creative work. So over, I think 5-6 years went through after that workshop. So that first workshop lasted 3 days, which is, I consider that really long. Nowadays my workshops last 1 day top. And I think, well, with the time I sort of learned to, to choose those concepts that I want to pass over and that are necessary for continuing your own practice. Yeah, so I took those workshops to a lot of cities. London, Barcelona, yeah, Switzerland, Istanbul, well, New York on Saturday. And teaching in different countries made me realize how unbalanced the typographic education is across countries, right? I have to say that we see the things from our perspective. You guys here in the US, me in Europe now, living there. We have a high level of education when it comes to design. And we have universities that include typography as a very important topic in their curricula. And students that know that, they have to buy a font to use it and that they have to commission a lettering if they need it, right? But this is not everywhere like this. And yeah, I bet many of you coming from other places know about this. And these students, they will also become, in a few years, they will also become art directors, and they will be art directors or designers, and they will be, those people who uses our products or the products of us who do letter design or type design, right? So they also need to have an idea about this and how this works. And I feel somehow that I'm committed to the responsibility of spreading that word. So I wanted to teach internationally, and that's what I did. And during those trips, I was taking pictures of signs, and I put them on a book. So it's sort of like as well, a sort of diary of the places I've been to with my workshops. But at some point, taking the workshops to different cities was really time-consuming, and it also got expensive for the students, for me. So this is when I went ahead and I set up online Skillshare classes. How many of you have seen this class? Or also, great. So although I think a Skillshare class is not the same as a workshop where I help each one of the attendants to succeed in their project, I think it's a good way to virtually travel to those places, to speak to a broader audience, and at the end of the day, like, pass on that piece of information. And I think it's very effective in this sense. But personally, that was a crucial step to actually do a book, because in a Skillshare class, you should sort of have to organize the things in steps. Like, so first I do this, then I do that, then I do this. Yeah, so that was really helpful to create a book afterwards. So back to the book. Of course, it goes through the letter design basics, and I bet that a lot of you guys doing lettering will say, like, well, I know that, but the same, like, not everyone knows this, and I think it's good to have it in mind. What I was doing these pages, I had doubts myself, like, what is this piece of the letter called, and things like this that are really essential for us as professionals, right? So, since I had to speak to a broader audience, people coming from different backgrounds, I had to come up with, you know, easy ways of explaining complex concepts. So, for instance, I compare shapes with basic geometrical shapes. So, for instance, the H, we can call the H a rectangular shape, right? Within the alphabet. Which other rectangular shapes can you name? Which one? M, for instance, yeah. Which others?
S.
S? -1. I, T, very good. So, yeah, we have some there. So if we speak about the rounded shapes, I can say, okay, they always a rounded shape. Which other rounded shapes do you know? Q.
C.
Yeah. U. Okay, yeah. E. Let me think about that one. But then if you think of, you know, if I tell you to think of a letter that shares a rounded shape and a rectangular shape, which letters can you name? D, R, B, very good. So by taking the DNA of, you know, certain groups of letters, then you can start building other letters. So it becomes sort of a system, and you don't have to come up with, you know, crazy shapes, but just, you know, follow a certain logic to create the shape. A way of explaining how to find the ideal spacing for a letter, you know, so if you can fill 1 liter of water within the letter, you should be able to fill the same amount of water between the letters. Letter proportions, how to deal with that. There's letters that have optimal proportions, but there's letters that have also like a shorter upper part and, you know, longer legs, and yeah. Or how to deal with distortion, right? And you know, comparing it with gravitational force. So if I'm standing on a slant, you know, my body will tend to compensate that slant, otherwise I would just fall. And the same happens with the letters. Or how to deal with a certain lettering style, right? For instance, shadow typography. What happens if the light comes from underneath, and what are the effects on the letter, but also on the storytelling, right? They look more scary if it's coming from underneath than if it's coming from the top, because it's like, you know, the sun is on the top, so it would tend to look more natural, right? And, well, yeah, there's some other information which is not so basic, which has to do with the optical adjustment, so it doesn't have to be good, but also look good. Yeah, spacing and contrast and weight. And of course, numerals and punctuation marks, because they also exist, right? So, by the way, all the illustrations in the book are made by hand. And that really hurts. This is a real life situation. And I think, you know, it makes the book that is made by hand in a lot of pages, but it wasn't a very clever idea because then I had to translate it in actually 4 other languages. So there's a German version of the book. It's called Lust auf Lettering. It doesn't have to do with lust. There's The Golden Secrets of Lettering. There's Los Grandes Secretos del Lettering in Spanish. And there will be a French edition. We don't have the title for the book, but I think it would be something like L'amour pour le lettering. That's my ugly French. So yeah, and calligraphy. I don't consider myself a calligrapher, but I acknowledge it's important in letter design. I think that every smart letterer should be up to date with their calligraphy practice and have their calligraphy sets prepared. And I was lucky to have great calligraphers contributing their calligraphy to the book. And I think these are one of the most beautiful. Look at this page; it's just beautiful. Yeah, so it just covers all the calligraphic basics, and then I speak about, I start to play with shapes and to sort of broaden the horizon of letter creation. And the usual big question when it comes to letter design is, how do I find a shape for a letter? So I didn't want to do a book that, shows pretty alphabets that you can copy and color, because that sort of, limits the possibilities to what I can draw and, what I can come up with. So I thought that perhaps a better way to do it is to explain the logics behind the most popular lettering styles, so you can then, if you understand how it works, then you can come up with ideas within that logic. So I speak about serif lettering and the different serifs you can work with. I speak about sans serif lettering. There's no such a thing as sans serif, but still. Dimensional lettering or shadows. I showed something about this before. Script lettering, how that works. Slant, where it comes from. Brush lettering and fractal lettering. So what are the basic principles of it? And what I call funky lettering. I don't know if it's a category, but yeah. And decorative lettering, right? So it's really about the principles that rule that style. So for instance, decorative lettering works like a cake, and how do you decorate the cake in layers, right? It's about, adding information and layers of information to a shape or to a letter shape while creating it. But it's not about just using the elements everywhere. It's about choosing exactly where those elements will be placed. So if you know the principles, how many kinds of decorative lettering can you do? As many as you can come up with, really. So I show my personal library of lettering. And then I go into composition and embellishments, right? And how to define, hierarchies between the text. And then how to group those, that information into a structure that makes sense. And distortion again. And then I speak about flourishes. Through my teaching, I noticed that there's actually a lot of people that is interested in doing flourishes. Because, flourishes and swashes are cool. They make you feel a little bit like, the creative, and if you look at this from this perspective, and you're interested in letter design, type design just looks too technical. It's too nerdy, too systematic, and of course, lettering. It seems like a more friendly approach to typography and letter design. So flourishes is something I do a lot in my work, and one of the great things of, writing about something that you do intuitively is that it becomes a tool for yourself. It happened to me recently that I was working on a project with a lot of flourishing, and there was something that was not quite working. And I went back to what did I say about this? What are the principles of this, right? So I think that's, it's great sometimes to put in words something that you just do, and that seems to come naturally, because there is some knowledge you have inside your head. So I do speak about flourishing, and I dedicate 2 spreads for flourishing and decorative elements. And now we get to what is like the core of the book. The basic idea of the book, I mean, besides this basics of letter design and yeah, and the typographic eye and everything, the core of the book is showing basically how I do the cover of the book, which is, I think, a good idea for the storytelling, but a very bad idea because for the author, because the book is something that changes until the last minute. It's like everyone has something to say about the cover. You know, the marketing team, the editor, the other publishing houses involved in the process, and this comes on top of your own pressure to actually do the cover of your book. You know, I always say that you are a great designer until you have to design something for yourself. Then you suck. And it really struggled a lot with designing this cover. I'm happy about how it turned out, but you know, explaining every time I was changing the cover, it was actually changing the content of the book. So the process I show is basically how I work with lettering. So I will show you how I basically work. This is an example with a cover I did a year ago for a Spanish publishing house. They wanted to do Alice in Wonderland. And so, yeah, I don't know if you remember Alice in Wonderland, the story. So she was falling into the rabbit hole and starting like a nonsense trip through Wonderland. So this is what I'm going to work with. These are the words that I'm going to form, right? So then I start defining hierarchies, what's important, what's not. Usually the connections or the connectors, I don't know how you call it in English, they can take a smaller size. And then I start sketching some concepts. So what if I base the concept for this illustration in the fact that this is, in the concept of wonder, so I use handwriting with a lot of flourishing, like looking wonderful. Or what if I base my drawings in the fact that this is a classic, and I use more conventional letter shapes, making everything look a bit more serious and Or what if I combine both? Since the book has a lot of nonsense, what if I combine both things into the illustration? So I combine rigid letter shapes with more organic letter shapes. So these are very small thumbnail sketches. These are like 5 by 5, and this whole process takes around 10 minutes, right? And then from this overview, I do a number of thumbnails. From this overview, I can then choose, okay, I think this direction could be possible. And then this is when I go to a bigger size. So I start sketching first guidelines where my letters will sit. And I start drawing, each letter shape, paying attention to some details. But without forgetting the whole, the whole piece, the whole picture. So I start defining details, the amount of contrast, whether those serifs will be rounded or spiky or, yeah. And then the drawing develops in several layers. And then it goes in the computer, and I draw the letters in vectors and finish our work. Ta-da! So the work develops from hand sketches to a final digital artwork, right? And I think that the hand sketches have a big impact on the work. So using sketches is not just a romantic thing. But it's just, I feel that, it has an impact on the result. So the impact is not only, that's why I dedicate actually like a chapter to speak about sketching lettering. Because it's not only a time-saving technique, but it also allows you to reach more personal results, and within an economical process. So I show more or less the decision making throughout the process, and this is a kind of chaotic part of the book, which has a lot to do with the creative process. And then how, from that finished sketch, I turn that into a digital drawing. So what are the best ways of drawing letters into vectors? What software should you use? How do you start drawing a letter, right? Where do you place those points? Yeah, and what are the best ways of working with that file? Right, whether you have to use your sketch in the background and have your digital drawing in the front, and how to get your shapes right. So now you know how to, the basics of lettering or letter design, then you know how to sketch them by hand, and you know how to draw them digitally. But as I said before, knowing how to draw the letters doesn't necessarily mean that you are done with the job, right? You're looking to convey a story. So once you have the letter shapes, then there's a lot of work that has to do with adding texture, adding color, sort of make everything together work to tell that story. And I normally say that the big challenge of digital lettering or digital illustration is that it shouldn't look so digital. So on the left side you have the digital finish or the digital illustration, and on the right side you have the result after applying all those textures and adding color and everything. So the finishing touch is about, that. It's about finding a color scheme, what works the best for your design, and how do you apply texture, and how do you work in layers on those, on that artwork to reach a final artwork. And this is the last chapter of the book, and this is where the work really got complex, actually, because by the end of the book there was a lot of people involved, like the translator, the editor, marketing, like a lot of things going on. But also I had a big project of mine, who was my son, who was actually born. Before having a baby, you hear a lot of stories about, what happens when the baby is there. So my experience is that when the baby is just born, he basically doesn't do much, right? He eats, he sleeps, he's awake for a while, and then you have a lot of time to do other things if you feel good. But as the time goes by, the baby starts to be more awake, and his activity increases, and this is where parents' productivity really drops down. So, but I'm really happy that he was, well behaving and being there next to me throughout the process. So this is where he started to be awake. Yeah, I know. So by the end of the process, I was working at crazy times, I got that done, and that had a good learning for me, which is like whenever you cannot give, or you think you cannot give more, there's always like a little bit more you can give. So yeah, I speak at the end about commercial work with lettering, and which kind of commissions can you get as a letterer, and something that I think is really important, which is like, okay, when you think you know, or you can do lettering, there's the big question, which is like, what do I draw, right? You sit there, you have all your tool set, and then it's like, what should I draw? I have no reason, no commission. So I come up with like a few tips to sort of produce work. and also build up your portfolio and showcase your work to attract clients, and how to behave also. I explain how to, yeah, if you need an agent and how to get it. Also pricing, which is an interesting topic always. And also like how do you deal professionally with a commercial commission, right? You get a briefing, how do you read that brief? How do you work with that client? How do you understand the feedback? And at the end, how do you deliver a file professionally and, you know, you get it done in time and everything, and what do you have to have into account in that process? And at the end of the book, I have a spread where I speak about something that I think is really important from the book, which is standards for good lettering. And throughout the time, I sort of came up with 6 standards, which are essential to sort of identify a good lettering piece. So one of them is consistency, right? So a few design decisions that are applied in the piece, right? If you choose a shape for a serif, how do you then translate that shape to other letters? The other standard is custom. It should be, you know, lettering should be made for that application, and that thing should be the same with or without that. Detail. I think something great about lettering is that it allows you to work with an amount of detail that, for instance, type design doesn't, right? Because in type design you have to design all the, you know, the whole alphabet and make it work, and then if you add so many details, it just becomes endless. Story. It has to tell a story. The story you want to tell. And a good lettering piece has to have good letter shapes, this is obvious, but yeah. And last, it has to be novel, so it has to bring something new to the world, but also it has to speak to a contemporary eye. So it has to be done for us. We should be able to read it. Yeah. And also, like, I think, you know, if you have the tools to actually do lettering or to start with your practice with lettering, I think it's good to also keep in mind a set of standards for the work you're going to do, you know. It's not only about being able to do it, but how you do it, and yeah, what are your standards to do it. So, of course, there's a part where I thank a lot of people, and I thank the publisher of the book, and now I thank you for being there and listening to my book presentation.
So now it's time for Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody?
Buy my book.
What software do you use for vectorize your lettering?
Yeah, I use Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, for to create the whole artwork. I think it's, you know, it's a good tool to actually not only draw the shapes, but also to work with color and texture. And then when I have to do a logotype design, for instance, which is only black and white normally, then I use Glyphs. Do you know Glyphs? It's an app. And it's very useful to draw letter shapes. It's very complete. Yeah.
Why did you change the stroke of the cover on the French version?
Why did you change this?
Why? Like the stroke on the lettering?
No, that was just the dummy. Like, she said, like, why did you change the design of the cover in the French version? But that was, yeah, that was just, you know, like a little doodle I did on the cover. Because there was no cover yet, yeah. But it would look very similar to the English and the other ones, yeah. So, yeah.
What has been your favorite commission so far, and who's the client that you'd love to work with?
So she asked, what has been your favorite commission so far and the client you would love to work with? I did recently a job for Adobe. Like it wasn't really a job. We actually did like a live stream, and I sort of showed the process of creating a piece of lettering throughout these 3 days. And I think when you work commercially, it's very common that the clients that come after brings a client that comes with a commission or something, that they are looking for something that you already have in your portfolio. So your work starts to repeat at some point, right? And in this case, I did a piece for that live stream, which is actually a piece that I thought when I finished after 3 days, it was like a marathon of lettering. I thought like, hey, this is something new, there's projects that actually bring something new to your portfolio or the work you do. So I think that's my latest favorite project because it just, it brought like a spark of like, I still got it, like, and then someone I would like to work with, I cannot say. I don't have anyone in mind right now. I should have thought about that answer. Yeah.
Could you speak a bit more about concept development? Like, since you're a graphic designer and then you went to type design, which is concept brief, and then to lettering, like, does it come out in the thumbnail sketches, or do you do brainstorming beforehand?
Yeah. So she asked me if I could explain a little bit about concept development. So when I get a brief from a client, there's usually, like a couple of ideas there. I always say that it's the worst thing you can have is no brief. So already from an art director or a client, I get, a universe of stuff that I can work with. So they provide a certain inspiration. So they say, hey, I want you to work with, I don't know, Victorian typography, or I would like you to work with script lettering. So from that, there's already a universe that is limited. And I normally, what I normally do is to go back in time to get inspiration, like from things that happened really back in time, like centuries ago. So I look through old specimen books or all graphic design pieces. And I try to look at that, like put it away, and then try to come up with something that is inspiring that, but it's sort of new, I always think like that I don't want to replicate things that happened before, but to do something like a contemporary take on that. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah? Okay, cool. Is there any more questions? Yeah.
You travel a lot, so you're probably exposed to different styles. Is there like a trend that you've noticed, like right now calligraphy, like the squiggly wedding invite thing is really popular, so have you noticed anything in lettering that everyone's kind of like doing?
Well, I think this, what you just named is like what comes first to my mind. I think this sort of brush calligraphy, sort of with a variable baseline and stuff, is what, is everywhere I look. Like logotypes, like also the usage is so varied. No? It's on logotypes, on magazine covers, and like it fits everywhere. But in digital lettering, not really. No, I don't feel there's such a strong thing like this brush lettering. Yeah. Yeah.
Who are your design heroes? Lettering heroes?
My lettering heroes. It's interesting because I live in Berlin, and Berlin has a very big typographic scene. I think there's around 50 type designers living in Berlin, which is like insane considering the amount of type designers worldwide. So we meet very often, and I think I'm the only one that does lettering there. And I think something interesting about the background in type design that I have is that I only know type designers, and I don't have much contact with lettering artists. That's why I was telling you that give me your Instagram accounts, because I hardly follow people that makes lettering on Instagram. And so I have to say that most of the design heroes that I have come from type design. I don't know if you know Peter Bilek. Do you know him? So he's a hardcore type designer, but he's also like a just look after him in the internet and stuff. He's also a great designer. He also has, you know, the ability to extrapolate his creativity not only in type design but in other things. Like, you know, he takes typography into a ballet, for instance, and he makes you know, a font that is like a lady dancing. So you write A and the lady moves in the shape of an A. Yeah, I think a lot of inspiration comes from type design, and I kind of like that because it gives me, I feel it just reminds me always that, you know, that the letters, the shape of the letters should be right, you know. And then of course you have to work with color and texture on top of that when you're working with lettering. But there's, you know, the heart of everything is like those shapes, and they have to be good. Yeah, did I answer it? Yeah. Oh.
And when you give books to people besides yours, which one is the book that you give to the most?
If I buy a book for someone,
It doesn't need to be about design.
yeah, it's about illustration. Yeah, and yeah, I would love to be like an illustrator, like a hardcore illustrator. Like, yeah, sometimes I feel that, you know, I should start now, like, trying to practice that. And I would love to be able to combine. I feel that, you know, lettering is sort of combining the two worlds, like, you know, illustration and design. But it's more towards the side of design, right? Like, you know, the core of it are the letters. And I feel I would love to develop the other side of illustration a lot more, you know? Yeah. But illustration is, you know, if I go to a library, I would probably go after the illustration books before the lettering books. Yeah. Do you have other questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So after this book, are you going to make other books? Or you would like to make other books? Or you're just going to stick with babies?
Babies are cool. You cannot compete with them. Well, I mean, of course, once you make the book, and now that I translated it in a couple of languages, then you start realizing, I could also speak about this and that, you know, like you come up with more content. I think once you did a book, then you continue coming up with ideas to talk about it more. But now I just think that these books need to, you know, like this. Me too.
That's it.
So, thank you for coming, guys.